Welcome to Middle Math Academy, Percent of a Number, Level Number 1. This is part of our differentiated series where we have 5 levels of challenge for every topic. Let's get started. Our learning target today is I can find 10% of a given number and determine the whole given 10% in a part. Before we get started, go ahead and rate your confidence on our learning target 1 through 5. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. Let's get started with some notes. Remember, if you ever need more time, you can pause the video and take however much time you need. Our first note is on Introduction to Percents. A percent is a way of expressing a number as a fraction of 100. Make sure you're writing with me. This symbol represents percent. And so, for example, if we have 50%, that means 50 out of 100. Now, if we want to find 10% of a number, we're going to divide the number by 10. So 10% of 80, we can simply take our number 80 and divide by 10. So 10% of 80 is 8. Make sure you have this down. And before we move to the next note, we're going to do a little bit of practice with our examples at the bottom of the page. Let's zoom in on example A. Pause the video, try example A on your own, then come back to the video to check your work. For example A, I know when I'm trying to figure out 10% of a number, I can simply take the whole, which is 70, and divide by 10. 70 divided by 10 is 7, so my answer is 7. Make sure you're showing your work and circling your answer. Now I want you to go ahead and try example B on your own. Pause the video, come back when you're ready to check your work. For example B, we'll do the same thing. We'll take 300, our whole, and divide it by 10, and we get 30. All right, let's finish up our notes now that we got some practice. In examples A and B, we were given the whole. Okay. And a key word to let you know it's the whole is it usually comes after of, or it's the total or original price. And so in example A, the whole was 70. In example B, the whole was 300. But now we're going to talk about how to find a number whenever you don't know what the whole is. Okay, so note number 3 is about finding the whole given a part in 10%. If 10% of a number is known, you can find the whole number by dividing the part by 10%. So we're not dividing by just 10, we're dividing by 10%, which as a decimal is 0.10. So let's do a little example. It says, if 10% of a number is 5, so remember, after the word of, it says a number. So we don't know what the whole is here. But in this example, we do know what the part is. The part is 5. So we're going to take what we know, 5, and we'll divide it by 0.10, and the whole is 50. Go ahead and try examples C and D, then come back to the video. Let's check our work for example C. If 10% of a number, so we don't know the whole, is 12, what's the original number? We'll take our part, 12, and divide it by 0.10, and we get our original number, or our whole, 120. In example D, 10% of a number is 9, so we'll do the same thing. 9 divided by 0.10 is 90. These examples will be really helpful for you today, so remember you can always refer back to your notes in these examples throughout our practice. Pause the video, check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. Come back to the video when you're ready for page 2. Let's look at page 2. It says find 10% of 20. In example A, I'll zoom in. Whatever comes after of is the whole, so we know that the whole is 20. Now, one strategy you could use is 20 divided by 10. I'm going to show you one more strategy. You can also multiply 10% or 0.10 times 20, and you'll get the same thing. So we were dividing by 0.10 when we didn't know the whole. You can also multiply by 0.10 if you do know the whole. Remember, you can also just divide by 10. So if I'm doing this problem, I can do 20 divided by 10, make sure you're writing with me, is 2. And that's our answer. Or you could do 20 times 0.10, 10% is a decimal, and you'll also get 2. Go ahead and try B and C on your own, then come back to the video. Let's check our work for problem B. You could either do 50 divided by 10 to get 5, or 50 times 0.10 and you'll still get 5. Check your work, fix any errors. Let's check C. Could do 90 divided by 10 to get 9, or 90 times 0.10 to get 9. Read the rest of page 2, pause the video, then check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. On page 2, we knew the whole and we tried to find the part, similar to examples A and B on our first page. Now we're going to practice examples similar to C and D, where we don't know the whole and we do know the part. So if 10% of a number is 8, our part is 8, and we'll simply divide by 0.10. 8 divided by 0.10 is 80, and that is our whole. Go ahead and complete problems B and C, then come back to the video to check your work. Let's check our work for problem B. We'll take our part 15 and divide by 0.10, and you should get 150. For problem C, our part is 12, and we'll divide by 0.10, and we get 120. Pause the video, complete the rest of page number 3, then check in with your teacher. Come back to the video when you're ready for page 4. Let's take a look at page 4. Now, I briefly mentioned this before, but I do want you to write it at the top of page 4. If we have the original price or the total price, that is the whole. So I want you to write this down at the top. And we're going to take one more note at the top. Remember to pause the video if you need more time. If we know the discount, if we know the tip, interest, or commission, that's considered the part. So this is going to help you on page 4, 5, and 6. Pause the video, make sure you have this down, and then let's get started on problem A. In problem A, a toy costs $30. Okay, so that, and I'm just going to zoom in, that is our total price. So we know what the whole is. And if we want to figure out what 10% of that is, we can just do 30 times 0.10 or 30 divided by 10. And in both cases, 30 times 0.10 is 3, and 30 divided by 10 is 3. So we found the part in this example. Go ahead and complete problems B and C, then come back to the video to check your work. Let's check our work for problem B. You save 10% on a $45 purchase. So 45 is our whole, it's our total. So we can multiply by 0.10 or divide by 10. And we get our part, which is 4.5 for both. Let's check problem C. For problem C, we also know the whole or the total, which is 75. So we'll do 75 times 0.10 or divided by 10, and we get 7.5 for both answers. Make sure you have this down. Before we move on, I want you to take a look at problem E. I'll zoom in. Problem E, it says if 10% of a shirt's price. So we don't know what the total price is here. We're looking for the whole. So remember, if they're giving you the part, 5, in this case, we're going to do 5 divided by our percent as a decimal, which is 0.10. And 5 divided by 0.10 is 50, which will give us our total or our whole. Complete the rest of page 4, then check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. On page 5, start by completing problems A, B, and C. Pause the video, then come back to the video when you're ready to check those 3. Let's check our work for problem A. So if the total bill is $80, that's our whole. And if you leave a 10% tip, the tip is a part. So we can do 80 times 0.10 or 80 divided by 10. And in both cases, we get 8. Now, if you got something like 800 or 8,000, you would want to think to yourself, does that really make sense as a tip at a restaurant if the bill's $80? So you want to use your sense too, and it's called reasonableness. Ask yourself, is this reasonable? Let's check our work for problem B. Check your work for B. Let's check C. Check your work for problem C. Complete the rest of page 5 on your own, then check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. Complete all of page 6. Once you finish page 6, come back to the video to check your work. We won't go over all of these problems, but we'll go over a couple. This video won't go over our error analysis problems at the top, but we will go over our common misconception problems. So let's take a look at our first problem, number 1. Common misconception problem 1 says true or false, 10% of 50 is 5. Explain. For this one, you should have gotten true. 10% of 50 means 50 divided by 10, or 50 times 0.10. And if you said false, remember, we're not multiplying by 10. That's a common mistake people make. Let's take a look at our next common misconception problem. True or false, to find the whole number, when given 10% in a part, divide the part by 10. So remember, we only divide by 10 if we know what the whole is. So the answer is false. You should divide by 0.10, which is 10% as a decimal. For example, if 10% of a number is 20, the whole number is 20 divided by 0.10, so our whole would be 200. Make sure you have this down. Don't forget to explain on these. Pause the video if you need more time. And to close out today's lesson, don't forget to answer our debrief problems in your own words. What did you learn today? How much effort did you put in during class? Rate yourself 1 through 5. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. And what do you think is a common misconception a student might make when working on percent of a number problems? Once you've answered all of the problems on page 6, you're going to go back to page number 1 and rate yourself on our learning targets next to after the lesson. At the beginning of today's lesson, we rated ourselves. Now that we've had some more practice, go ahead and rate your confidence 1 through 5. Once you finish page 6, rated yourself on our learning targets on page 1, get your teacher's initials to get additional feedback. Thank you for joining us today at Middle Math Academy, where we practice percent of a number, level number 1. This is part of our differentiated series where we have 5 levels of challenge for every topic. If you're looking for any additional practice, make sure to check out levels 2, 3, 4, or 5. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.